This is Fire Sale Franchise episode 38, so we're just coming off a Super Bowl. It's time to get on with some off-season stuff. First thing to do is re-sign some players, and usually all the guys I use as backups I just let go and, worry about it when it's time to sign some extra backups once I know where I need them after the draft and stuff. This time I kind of had the idea to sign a couple more of them right now. So we've got an interesting thing here. We could franchise tag Trey Flowers, but I'm just going to let him walk. Maybe we'll look in free agency for another right end. I don't know. We'll have to see what happens. But Trey Flowers, we're letting go. We're not going to hassle him having to stay here. He's won his Super Bowl. He can leave. Jarvis Harrison, we don't need as a backup. DeJuan Smith, we may end up coming back for, but I also plan to draft a cornerback or two, so I don't think we'll need him. Scooby Wright, unfortunately, is just surplus 2 requirements. Antoine Wall is pure depth. I don't think I saw him more than a couple of times on the field last season. Rico Gathers, one of the day one players, but has become surplus 2 requirements here. But let's see who else is here. There's a lot of guys I don't want to see leave. So we'll do Gathers, Mobo, and Warford, and that's all we'll re-sign right now. The rest of them we can find in free agency again if we want. Antoine Wall actually is 71 overall. He's improved quite a bit. Might be worth signing him actually, because that's not bad. Okay, Warford re-signed and Mobo, the important one. One of the other banner players of this series, and it's still cheap and never really does too. I would like to play for a new team next year. How could you? It does actually slightly hurt me personally when they do that. Everybody else, get out of here. I don't want to ever see you again after he hurt my feelings. I'll take it out on you. Tajay Sharp is available to play again after not being injured, which really is great news. The only shame with letting some of these guys go is just watching their XP walk out the door. We earned that and they're off. So now is the big thing, and I'll say it again. I've said it a couple of times now. This is the time it's actually important. We can sign free agents now. We didn't do it before because the whole point of the series was get a whole bunch of draft picks and draft a bunch of players. There's no reason to then also fill the roster with free agents. However, now we just have a normal number of draft picks and we can sign free agents. The wrinkle being they have to be guys coming off of their rookie contracts. So that's anybody drafted in 2015, I believe. We can sign them. So it'll be interesting to see who's available. Some interesting players. If there's a nice cornerback, I'd be interested in that. We have lots of cap room. We can sign some big money guys if we wanted. Not saying I necessarily will, but there's no free agents available. Never mind. So one of the guys from that draft class, Mario Edwards Jr. Byron Jones is another guy. We don't need a free safety, but Ronald Darby. So that's one of the guys I could potentially be interested in there. And Matt Ryan, apparently not good enough to get an immediate bid. Despite what it says here that he's a type 3-4 versatile, which technically he could be, but he is a defensive end that can play in a 4-3. So he's certainly with someone we could go after. Replacing Trey Flowers with Mario Edwards Jr. allows Vance to be a full-time defensive tackle. That's certainly something we could consider there. We could get Grady Jarrett or Malcolm Brown at defensive tackle, although again, not something I'm really that interested in, not a position I really thought we desperately needed somebody in. Mario Edwards Jr. right now would be the big money signing really. Trey Waynes is available. If he's as fast as he used to be, he could be interesting. Still got that 95 speed, he's just not really that good in coverage. I think he could be interesting, to be fair. I think that's the kind of one we want here. Trey Waynes would be an interesting signing as our number 4 cornerback really. Ronald Darby, of course, is very good. I just don't know if I want someone that would directly replace one of our cornerbacks that's starting, because I like those guys. Then again, having Ronald Darby and Jameson Nickerson lining up across from each other, it might be too good to pass up. On the other hand, Trey Waynes and Jameson Nickerson, who is going to beat them for speed? Doesn't matter where you line him up, he's up against an extremely fast corner. So there's 2 guys I'm interested in. Mario Edwards, and I know I didn't scout anybody at defensive end that I thought was either reachable or that good. And Ronald Darby. The problem is I would play Ronald Darby as the number 2. He would directly replace, build-wise and everything, would replace Ifo Ekprelumu. D. Milliner we would keep as our slot guy. And now Ekprelumu all of a sudden, despite, being the Super Bowl MVP, is our 4th string cornerback. There's also a couple of cornerbacks I was looking at in the draft, but it's the same for Trey Waynes. If I sign Trey Waynes, I want him to be the number 2 guy. I'm going to bid on both of these guys. I'm going to offer them both some things. They may not even remotely want to come here, and then that's problem solved. But those 2 players I am interested in. Let's see if we can get some business done. We're making a big money offer, $51 million contract, 5 years. It lands us smack bang on top of the list. And now I just realized he's from Florida State. Ronald Darby's from Florida State. Apparently there's a sale on for Florida State products and they're half off. Well, actually, they're not very cheap, but let's just place this offer, see what that does for us. That's not good enough. We're 5th. You're making me pay here, Ronald. So there we go. It's a little bit hard to do this. Having gone this entire series never doing anything to do with free agency, it's hard to now suddenly be diving in and bringing in new players. But it was always an idea to be allowed to sign people coming off rookie contracts, and that's what both of these guys are. Maybe Edwards and Darby can become on defense what Malcolm Mitchell and Keith Marshall were on offense. They were the 2 Georgia boys, and for a long time they were running that offense together, at least in the first year. Edwards and Darby as the Florida State guys. Maybe, you know, they can get something going there. And I think this really, the cornerback position would be incredible there. I think absolute definitive shutdown defense with those guys there. Ronald Darby on one side, Jameson Nicholson on the other one. D. Mullen is still patrolling the slot. Our safeties obviously are very good, and we know Ekpreolumu is capable of shutting down any team's 4th string corner. Edwards Jr., he fills a hole left by Trey Flowers not coming. Jamarcus Vance, of course, is good, but I like him at defensive tackle. He's also a slightly better defensive tackle than he is a defensive end. So we got those bids in. Let's see if anybody tries to outplay us as we advance the week. Malcolm Mitchell is returning from injury. That was a very quick injury. But just looking at these guys, I don't know how people are going to move the ball on us if we have a standout cornerback on the other side as well as Jameson Nicholson. Because Ekpreolumu is good, but if they did beat us, it was on his side most of the time. Not to say Jameson Nicholson was completely unbeatable, but he was tested a lot less often than Ekpreolumu. Ekpreolumu stood up to the challenge. It's not to now slate him because we're trying to replace him. He absolutely perfectly did it. But one problem I do have with him, and it is a problem that genuinely is there, and we saw it in the Giants game, he is relatively slow for the position. He's got 88 speed. That is slow for a cornerback. Anytime the team's number 1 receiver was fast, we usually had to drop Jameson Nicholson as the technical number 2 guy, so he would line up with him. Not having to make that adjustment and knowing that a fast guy is covering their number 1 receiver is good enough for me. Ekpreolumu was burnt regularly-ish on the outside. I don't know if you remember, there's times when I wasn't playing cover 2 or anything that he would just get straight up burnt. I do feel bad for saying that. I really... I look at his face and I don't mean it, but yeah, I do mean it. It's just a fact. It's a fact, and we're trying to improve the team. As they say, the target is on our back now as Super Bowl champions, and we've got to improve. Quickly looking into the news stories here before I continue, because I forgot to do it first part. Drew Brees has retired, so, you know, we can feel slightly less bad now if we play the 49ers in the future. Carson Palmer has retired, Kyle Williams, Mario Williams, and that's pretty much it for worthwhile retirements, which is surprising because usually there's a lot. I actually haven't been keeping as good an eye on the draft news this year, but what I do like here is that they're saying Georgia cornerback Will Wesley plummets down draft boards as questions grow about conditioning. What I'm reading there is if he's there at not a high draft pick, I'd take a shot on that. We're not looking for a starter, so if he's got, you know, bad stamina but good stats, I'll take that for a backup. Who knows? We'll keep an eye on it. Let's advance a week and see what happens. And here we are. We've got 2 new players, Mario Edwards Jr. and Ronald Darby. So welcome to the team, gentlemen. So now we've got the scouting, combine reports, grades, whatever. We can look at some wide receivers, which I'm really just looking at out of interest here. So this is Will Wesley, the guy that people are worried about because of his stamina or whatever. First in the 40-yard dash, first in the broad jump, first in the bench press. If we can take him, he's a late first rounder. Let's hope he's actually falling. I'm going to take him. Are you kidding me? Why do I care what his stamina basically is going to be if he's that good? And Skip Bayless said our contract for Mario Edwards is, as a joke, terrible cap management. Just see what you would do when you've got, you know, $60 million in cap space in a full team. You'd be a little more generous towards the second most sought after player in free agency. Imagine how much we would have paid Greg Olsen if we were interested in him. Now there's a player, Eric Nickerson. Not only does he have the same last name as Jameson Nickerson, but he's also from Michigan State, which means that the year before last he would have been playing with our current middle linebacker, Christian Stuckey. Means absolutely nothing, but you know, and the draft gets its own episode, so what we've got after that is a fully fledged line, and most of them look quite good. Still would, to be fair, after 2 years, probably a new center maybe. Pretty happy with left guard, but it could be better. Nat Newsom there at left tackle's doing a good job. Right guard, good job. Right tackle, good job, especially with Pearson as a backup. At tight end, we've got to think about potentially, obviously only backup. Sugets is an absolute superstar. Running back, not so much, especially once we can spend some of that XP. I say once we can, once I do spend some of that XP. Lance Sitton, holding down quarterback. Receiver, only because a nice receiver could be interesting if we get a guy that's a superstar, but I'm also not that bothered. Cornerback, pretty much absolutely not needed now with Ronald Darby there. Defensive line, again, still could do with technical improvements, although I think it's pretty good. Linebackers, nothing against Sherrill, but he's the only one where potentially I would replace. And strong safety, again, only pure technicalities. All the other guys I'm very attached to. I'm attached to Derek Milner as well, to be fair, but that's it. That's, you know, that's what we will be looking for. A quick free agency recap, see where some of the top players went. And nobody wanted Matt Ryan. He's still available. Now that's sad. And nobody wanted Trey Flowers. That's even worse, because I don't know if he thought he was too good for us or not, but it's not really worked out too well, his dive into free agency. And I feel bad for him. I'm not malicious. I may even try and sign him again if he's still there, but I'm sure he'll find a team. So Greg Olsen went back to the Chicago Bears. KJ Wright went to the New York Jets. Byron Jones went to the Browns. The Browns who were in the Super Bowl last year, so that's not actually funny. Randy Gregory went to the Falcons. Leonard Williams to the Bears. Jordy Nelson we already knew went to the 49ers. Danielle Hunter went to the Ravens. Pete to the Eagles, who obviously we got rid of. Grady Jarrett went back to the Falcons. Jamison Crowder's now with the Packers. Kevin White went to the Falcons. They also signed another guy, I can't remember who it was, up there somewhere, wide receiver. Falcons doing some work. Kevin Johnson going to the Falcons, Malcolm Brown going to the Falcons, Nick Fairley to the Jets, Ball to the Jets, Philip Dorsett to the Chiefs, Kiko Alonso to the Cardinals, and I think that is it for interesting players, except for there's a guy called Van Rotten. What is he? He's a left guard. Okay, so that is it. That is it for this off-season episode. The first time we've actually signed new players. 2 starters on the defense, that's what we went for. 2 guys that were eligible because they were coming off their rookie contracts. I'm highlighting Onyemata and Vance, obviously it's not those 2. Very, very interested to see how this draft shapes up. I don't know who I'm going to be drafting or anything. I have no favorites really. And because we're that far back in the draft, I'm not doing any moving or anything like that. It's really just going to be a case of waiting until we get to our pick, seeing who's there to take, and then making that decision. And that is it then, so next episode will be the draft, and I'll see you around for that one.